A grisly crime scene is discovered in an abandoned trailer in small-town Texas.
You're immediately hit with a foul odor.
I saw a deceased male with his head and torso inside of a large green trash can.
It looked like someone had tried to possibly dispose of the body, but gave up.
The victim is a husband and father of 3. And with the rest of the family nowhere to be found, concerns grow.
There were toys, children's clothes thrown about everywhere. Somebody had left in a hurry. Where's the wife and where are the 3 children?
They were entered into TCIC as missing endangered people. We don't know if this is a potential burglary or robbery.
What unfolds is a homicide investigation with 5 potential victims. But when detectives track down their killer, they find the truth is more disturbing than anything they could have imagined.
She wanted to wipe it off the face of the earth.
She was purchasing items to cover up this crime, all while she had her child in tow.
She's a monster.
You might as well arrest me now, because I'm number 1 on the list.
It's the kind of case that causes you to lose sleep at night.
December 4th, 2012. It's a chilly winter day in Red Oak, Texas, when police receive a frantic emergency call. 54-year-old Susanna Asbel says she's outside her son's home with her husband Terry, and they think something terrible has happened.
They were concerned because they had not heard from their son, Marlon Wade Reese, or the daughter-in-law, Amy Reese, in 3 to 4 weeks.
On the 13th or 14th of October, I had this really bad nightmare. Like something had just was crushing my heart. I just knew it was Wade. My husband asked me what was wrong, and I said, it was a bad feeling. Wade was fixing to start a new job in Waxahachie, and I knew the job, they work people like, sometimes they work him 80, 90 hours a week. I thought, well, he's busy. He started his new job. I wasn't no concern or anything.
Susanna says when Thanksgiving came and went without any word from Wade or his wife Amy, she decided it was time to pay them a visit.
On December 4th, I looked at my husband. I said, I don't care what we're doing. We're getting in the vehicle and we're going to Red Oak. As soon as I drove up, I knew something was wrong. Wade's vehicle was parked backwards, and it was just full of dirt, like it had not been moved. When I opened the mailbox, it just was bloated with mail. Terry says, well, let me go in the house and see what I can see. He said, you go ask the neighbors if they've seen anything. Got to the neighbor, and I said, have you seen Wade or Amy? Have you seen anybody? And they said, no, we hadn't seen them in a while. And then he says, but we have been smelling something from coming that way. And about that time, I heard my husband holler. He said, what's the address here? And I gave him the address. And he says, you can't go in there. There's somebody dead in there. And I looked at him and I said, I know it's Wade.
Deputies and investigators quickly arrive and tell Susanna and Terry to wait outside while they search the home.
We entered the residence, which was a mobile home. You're immediately hit with a foul odor consistent with decomposition.
I could immediately see that someone had attempted to pack up the house. There was a TV missing from the wall where it had clearly been on an entertainment center.
There were toys, children's clothes, books, DVDs. It was definitely in disarray. Stuff thrown about everywhere. Somebody had left in a hurry.
In the primary bedroom, they find the source of the smell.
I saw a deceased male lying face down with his head and torso inside of a large green trash can. His feet were out of the trash can and coming through the doorway.
The feet are bound. The hands have been tied. There's a bag over its head. I've worked multiple homicides before this one, but this one was unique. It was shocking. It was apparent that their actions were to get the body completely in the trash can, like they were going to take the trash out.
He had skin slippage and marbling of his skin, which implied that he had been there for quite some time.
We're having multiple discussions about what could have happened, what went on. Is this Wade? Where's the wife? Has he been killed and they've been taken and now we have an abducted wife and abducted children? I want to start talking to people, witnesses, and trying to put the puzzle together.
The Red Oak police showed up and they taped it off, and I just knew it was Wade. I just knew in my heart it was him.
Marlon Wade Reese was born January 5th, 1976 in Las Cruces, New Mexico. He grew up in Northeast Texas, raised by his mother, Susanna.
We're like third and fourth generation Texans, so I love Texas. When we moved to Red Oak, we bought a piece of land and we bought a trailer. Wade was a really good little baby. When he started walking, that's when the fun really started, because he was getting into everything, bringing bugs in his pocket and trying to jump off of stuff. And he just thought he was a tough little guy.
Though his parents split up when he was 6 months old, Wade remained very close with his father.
We were too young. It just wasn't going to stay, and we decided to separate ways. But I had a very good relationship with Wade's father. From the age of 5, Wade used to spend the whole summer with his grandpa and his dad, and he would ride motorcycles like crazy. And as he grew and got bigger, his grandpa would buy Wade whatever he wanted. I got married again, and then I found out I was pregnant with Crystal, and Wade wasn't very excited about having another person, because he'd been almost 6 years. It was just, him and I.
My brother was a very good brother. He definitely protected me, and especially when I got older, there's a lot of boyfriends that he did not like. But growing up, man, we had lots of fun.
After dropping out of high school, Wade followed in his grandfather's footsteps by pursuing a passion for mechanics.
Wade was good at taking cars apart, motorcycles, and he would build things. And he always had a job.
He had quite a few girlfriends. My brother was a worker. It was, let's get my stuff together so that I can go be a man.
He was looking for that right woman. Told him, I said, you may have to kiss a lot of frogs out there till you get that princess.
At the age of 32, Wade finally met his match on a dating website. A 33-year-old single mother named Amy Deaver.
Wade said he just met this nice lady in Fort Worth, and he'd been talking to her, and he just thought she was really cute. She had 2 children. Wade was really protective of them. They got along really well. They were very loving. They was always holding hands and kissing on the couch.
In 2008, Wade and Amy got married.
Wade was just ready to settle down. Wade thought he found the one,
Wade called me and said, Mom, can you take Amy and buy her a dress? And I said, sure, I'll buy her a dress. So I took her. We went to Walmart. She picked out a really nice dress.
Not long after that, Wade had another wish fulfilled when Amy gave birth to their son.
Wade was very ecstatic. Wade knew, well, I got a motorcycle partner now. I've got somebody that can teach how to work on cars.
I really honestly feel like my whole brother's demeanor in life, went up a level. You know what I mean? Okay, this is it. I got my family. I got my son.
I was living in North Dallas, and I talked to my husband, and I said, the trailer house is empty. I'm just going to give it to Wade. Amy was very grateful. He was so happy.
I've never seen them argue. Never, not once. Amy and Wade were just Amy and Wade.
But their happy home has become the scene of a grisly murder. And investigators are trying to determine what happened.
We don't know if this is a potential burglary or robbery or something that just went bad.
I immediately spoke with Terry and Susanna Asbill, and I learned that Amy was missing, the 3 children were missing, her van was missing along with their dogs.
You could hear jibber jabber from the police saying whoever was in there was something on top. And I thought, oh, Lord, I thought they were going to find my grandson dead also.
Coming up, the crime scene provides several clues about the killer.
To abuse a body like that just shows an enormous lack of respect for human life.
And the autopsy reveals startling details.
The person stood up outside the bed in a downward manner, shooting while he was asleep.
Before the search for Amy and the children takes an unexpected turn.
The story just kept getting worse.
An unidentified body suspected to be Wade Reese has just been discovered decomposing in his family's mobile home. After securing the crime scene, Red Oak sheriffs put out an alert for Amy Reese and the children.
In the event that anybody were to come in contact with law enforcement, we would be notified. And they were entered into TCIC, NCIC as missing endangered people.
Homicide detectives then take over, scouring the trailer for any clues.
We were collecting blood, articles of evidence that we could use to compare with DNA that potentially could be left at the scene by the suspect.
His head was wrapped in a trash bag. He was bound using duct tape and rope by the legs. I felt like that the trash bag is probably concealing a manner of injury of some type.
I got the impression this was likely a gunshot wound, and the trash bag had been tied over the victim's head to contain the fluids that were actively coming out of his head.
I noted some blood splatter on the bed. I noted a void in the mattress. I ended up cutting that void open where I recovered a projectile that was a bullet.
Investigators aren't able to locate a murder weapon, but they do find empty shell casings, as well as evidence of a hasty cleanup.
There was smeared blood on the trash can and a dolly with blood smeared on it as well.
It looked like someone had tried to possibly dispose of the body, but gave up in the middle and just left.
He was a very tall man, and bodies are not easily movable. That's the reason they use the phrase dead weight.
To abuse a body like that, it just shows an enormous lack of concern or respect for human life.
We couldn't readily identify the body at the scene because of the advanced stages of decomposition.
Outside the home, investigators find another trash can by the curb.
Inside the trash can, we found several plastic or rubber gloves. We found the boxes for borax laundry detergent and carpet deodorizer. I was able to develop fingerprints on the packaging for a 3M respirator mask, which would have been used to block out any sort of decomposition odor. And I was able to find a fingerprint on a box of contractor trash bags.
Several of the gloves that were found, the duct tape, the mask, those items were submitted for DNA analysis.
It was a lucky break that the trash can had not been picked up and all of those items disposed of at that point, because 2 months had gone by.
The crime scene tells detectives this was no simple robbery attempt.
Somebody was trying to mask a scene, and it was apparent by what I was looking at when I was walking around the crime scene that it was quick. It was not well thought out.
When we went into some of the children's bedrooms, we could see that the closets had been cleared out. I saw several suitcases around the house that appeared to be partially packed up and left behind.
It wasn't a situation where somebody was looking to find something. Somebody was leaving in a hurry.
I'm working something like this and I find out there's children. My focus always is, where are the children? What's going on with the children?
Desperate for answers, investigators pull Amy and Wade's bank records.
We investigated the couple's finances and found pattern to a local storage facility in a nearby city. It was in Duncanville, Texas.
We executed a search warrant there, and we found several items of interest inside the storage unit. We found several trash bags that contained bedding that had been stripped from the bed at the house. We found several articles of clothing that had apparent blood on them. We found several firearms and things of that nature. One of the articles of clothing was a pair of camouflage cargo shorts that had blood stains on both sides and within the waistband of the shorts. We were actually shocked that these trash bags were in this storage unit. We did not think it was going to be that easy.
The shorts that were found could have been worn by a male or a female.
We believe that one of the pairs of shorts that we found in the trash bags belonged to our victim.
Detectives send the bloody pants out for testing. But they leave with more than just another piece of forensic evidence.
When we executed that search warrant and met with the storage facility personnel, we learned that Amy had come to the storage facility with the children. They didn't know what Amy was doing, but they watched the children while Amy was in and out of her storage building. Once we were able to put eyes on Amy and the children, we no longer believed Amy had been abducted.
"24 hours into the investigation of the Reese family's disappearance, after speaking to an employee at their storage unit, police have just discovered that Amy and the children are alive. While detectives are working to track them down, they receive the autopsy report.
The doctor who performed the autopsy told us that because of the advanced stages of decomposition, they were going to have to take extra steps to identify them. Mrs. Asbill had relayed that Wade had a tattoo of a Texas Longhorn tattoo on his arm, I believe, and then a Yosemite Sam cartoon character on his chest. Later at the medical examiner's office, the doctor did note tattoos consistent with that description on the body.
Once we were able to get the identification of the decedent, Wade Reese, we continued our process of trying to figure out what happened. My focus immediately was, where's the wife and where are the 3 children? The pathologist made the determination that Wade had been shot on the right side of the head, and that would have been the entry wound, and that the exit wound was right above the left ear. And he would have died instantly. With Wade laying on his side, we concluded that the person stood up outside the bed in a downward manner, shooting Wade while he was turned away from them, asleep.
The medical examiner also notes burns likely caused by sulfuric acid.
It had been thrown on Wade's face. Whoever did this thought they could take that chemical, and I feel like they were trying to dissolve the body get rid of the body by the chemical eating away at the flesh.
The blood on the shorts found in the Reese's storage unit is confirmed to be Wade's. This, combined with the sighting of Amy and the children, causes detectives to consider Amy a suspect. They talk to Wade's loved ones to see if there's a motive.
Detective Fitzgerald called me, and he said, I'm coming to your house to talk to you. And by that time, I'd already cried for 2 days straight. He showed up, and he confirmed it was Wade. I don't think I even cried, to be honest with you. And he said, you don't know any places that they would go. And the only thing I just knew was that Amy's mother lived down in Temple, Texas. She didn't have a very good relationship with her mother, but she still tried to go see her mother because Amy had a little sister.
Amy grew up in South Texas. She grew up in the foster care system. She was a habitual runaway, living with grandparents throughout her childhood. She had been in and out of different group homes.
Amy started at a young age getting in relationships with men.
I want to say the gentleman was probably 20, maybe 25 years older than her.
She had her first child together with this man. This man ultimately was arrested and convicted of sexual assault of a different child.
She directly went to a second relationship, didn't get married, but had another child.
According to Wade's family, he did his best to help Amy and her daughters heal from their traumatic experience.
Amy, she needed somebody that she could rely on, somebody that would nurture her. She didn't have that. She only had one of the little girls half the time. One of the girls went to her grandmother's on the weekend. He wanted to make sure that they knew that they could come to him and they didn't have to worry about anything happening to them, that he was like a safe place.
As far as Wade's mother is concerned, Amy had no reason at all to kill him. But Wade's sister recalls an incident that occurred several months before his death.
Wade and Amy got into a fight one night. Wade went outside and slept in his car in the yard that we had. Well, apparently Amy's daughter called the cops and was like, my parents are fighting. And the cops showed up and drugged my brother out of his truck while he was asleep and arrested him.
We were able to determine that Amy had also been arrested for assaulting Wade.
We learned that the children had been removed from the home in 2009. But we also learned that they had worked those services and that the children were allowed to be reunited with Amy and Wade.
We were highly concerned for the children initially because we didn't know her status. We didn't know whether or not Miss Reese was involved.
All of the evidence, both circumstantial and physical, pointed towards Amy. It was just a matter of putting it all together.
Coming up, the search for Amy heats up.
Knowing that 2 months had gone by at this point, she could have been anywhere.
And when detectives find her, she makes a startling accusation.
It was abusive. For my daughters, it was getting physical and inappropriate.
So she's levying these accusations against Wade when, in fact, Child Protective Services took the children due to Amy, not her husband.
Days into the search, the unidentified body is now known to be Wade Reese. With the positive ID, detectives are even more intent on finding his wife and 3 children.
There was a teenage daughter and 2 littles. I knew that they had been enrolled in the local Red Oak Independent School District. I was able to talk to administrators and get some key information about the children being unenrolled. It was noted that there was a family emergency.
Records indicate Amy pulled the children out of school on October 15th.
At the scene, when we were going through the mail, it was dated the 16th of October. So the murder occurred right around the time that Amy took the kids out of school. I knew that our target was focusing on Amy.
Knowing that 2 months had gone by at this point, she could have been anywhere in the country or in the world.
Calls to Amy's cell phone are going straight to voicemail, and GPS data has been turned off. So police track her using a more antiquated method, the DMV.
I had our dispatch center start running Amy's name throughout all 50 states, and they were able to get a hit of a Colorado driver's license.
When we found out that Amy was in Colorado, it told us a couple of things. It told us, one, she was okay. We didn't have any reason to believe that she fell victim to anybody. Two, we got pretty excited because we had a general area where we could look for her. We had found the address on her driver's license, and we reached out to the Denver Police Department, requested their assistance.
Denver police locate the children through enrollment information.
We learned that the children were okay. One child had been left with a family member. The other two children, we discovered they were okay. Denver police moved into their procedures and got their local child protective services involved.
When Denver police report to the address listed, they are met by the residents who tell them Amy is not there.
We found out Amy had befriended and was living with the owner, and that owner was able to help her out to watch her kids while she went and looked for a job.
Police convinced the resident to call Amy and falsely tell her that the littlest child is out in the street and they need her to come home.
When Amy responds to the emergency call, she's taken into police custody.
Detective Castro is a part of Denver Police Homicide. He was asked to come in and help, and he met with Amy at headquarters.
My first priority is to, see if I could build a rapport with her. Amy was very responsive to my questions. She was cooperative. She didn't seem like the typical homicide suspect. What I learned from Amy during our interview was that she left Texas to get away from her husband.
Okay. Why don't you tell me about that?
He was abusive.
What do you mean he's being abusive?
Emotional, verbal, and for the kids, for my daughters, it was getting physical and inappropriate.
They'd had previous fights where they were both arrested. She basically says that, the final straw on this was when Wade picked up her daughter and slammed her on the floor. She knew she had to get out of this relationship for her kids. She said they left on October 14th in the middle of the night. She took their white van.
That's the last time you saw him?
That was the last time I saw him. My daughters and my son, we snuck out of the house, got what we could get, and snuck out.
She said that she returned the next day. She drove around the property a couple times, hoping that he wasn't there. She had to sneak into the house to get their belongings, and then she left. She traveled through Oklahoma, Kansas, and eventually settled here in Denver because she said she liked the area. She wanted to get a job, and she thought that she could come here and basically start a new life. Eventually, we come to a point where I had to ask her if she knew what happened to her husband, and she claimed that she didn't. I just told her, I was just on the phone with Ellis County sheriffs, and he's dead.
He was murdered.
Murdered?
Mm-hmm. Here you are, you're an abused wife. He's being mean to your kids. You pick up and leave town. I think you did what you had to do to protect your kids. But did you have to do more?
No, I left. When he was sleeping, I left.
I tried to sympathize with her. You know, there's a lot of women in your situation. I think people would understand. I'm trying to draw this out of her, try to get her to explain, you know, why she did this.
To investigators, Amy's response is telling.
I want to go down for this regardless, don't matter. You might as well arrest me now, because I'm number one on the list.
Amy Reese's interview with Denver police raises further suspicions, but she ends it before they can probe any further about Wade's murder.
It doesn't matter even if I have an attorney. I'm going to go down for this regardless if I did it or not. Life is over.
She ultimately requested an attorney to represent her, and she stopped the interview.
Obviously, we didn't get a confession where she said that she murdered Wade, but I think we narrowed down dates. I thought it was strange that, you know, she left on October 14th and then she had to sneak into the house on the 15th. As an investigator, you know, when I'm hearing this, I'm thinking he's already dead at this point, and she's driving around the property making sure nobody's a witness there.
She told Detective Castro that she had gone back into the house and collected belongings. So she was implicating herself in the crime scene.
Amy is released for the time being, but Denver police keep her under surveillance while detectives continue their investigation, as well as request that she submit her electronic devices for review. When they ask Wade's family about the allegations of abuse, they vehemently deny them.
There was absolutely no proof that Wade had ever harmed any of those children. There was no indication that Wade had been anything other than a loving father.
I never seen him yell or get angry. 110% I knew my son would never do anything like that. Never.
So she's levying these accusations against Wade when, in fact, Child Protective Services took the children from the home, and that was due to abuse and neglect by Amy, not her husband.
Investigators obtain a search warrant for Amy's electronic devices, and what they find suggests her reasons for leaving had nothing to do with the children.
When we had forensics go through her computers and phones, we found that she lived a life of deviant sexual acts.
Within days of Wade being dead, she was already on sexually explicit websites and chat rooms. She was sexting with men, you know, sending them graphic photos of herself as if she knew that he was dead. So perhaps Amy was having an affair.
She was tired of Wade. She was ready to start a new life with somebody else. It was apparent with her deviant sexual texting that was going on.
It showed that Amy had no remorse, that she was able to leave her husband rotting in that trailer for 2 months, acting as if nothing was wrong.
But as suspicious as Amy's exploits might be, what detectives need is evidence tying her to the murder.
We discovered they were on government assistance, and that led us to Amy's WIC card. And when we ran a history on that, that's when we started to tie purchases that she had made.
Through looking at Amy's financials, we were able to locate receipts that indicated she had made purchases both at a Walmart local in Red Oak and then again at a nearby town of Waxahachie.
Investigators compare Amy's purchases to the cleaning supplies found in the Reese's garbage.
I met with the loss prevention folks at Walmart, and we immediately started running some of the barcodes that we had found at the scene. We were able to hone in to the surveillance of when those articles were purchased. We discovered that Amy was on camera. She had her daughter with her. And she's smart. Halfway, she goes to the ATM, pulls cash out, and pays for it with cash. Some of the stuff in Red Oak she purchased with her WIC card.
Amy was purchasing items that she was using to cover up this crime, all while she had her child in tow.
When we discovered that she was on video with the trash can, we knew we had her.
Detectives get further confirmation when lab results come back on the fingerprints and DNA they collected.
We discovered Wade's blood along with Amy's fingerprint in a trash bag that contained Wade's blood, which is a direct link to the crime scene.
The latent fingerprints that were found that were confirmed to be Amy's, in addition to the absence of anybody else's prints or physical evidence, led us to get the arrest warrant on Amy.
Investigators are confident that Amy pulled the trigger. Now, prosecutors must convince a jury this mom turned murderer.
Regards to her childhood and how she came up, I don't know how it relates to why she did what she did. I felt that there was obvious tension in the house. For whatever reason, Amy was feeling pressure to get out of this relationship.
I think she was ready to move on to another man. She was tired of waiting and ready to move on. So she killed him. At this point, we are tying up loose ends, making sure we have all our evidence processed. That way, the prosecutors have the best case that we can put together to bring justice to Wade's parents and family.
On January 20th, 2013, Amy Reese is extradited from Colorado to Texas, where she is charged with the murder of her husband, Wade Reese.
I stayed in contact with the family of Wade throughout this entire process. They were asking the same questions that we had. Why? Why did she do this? Why could something happen like this to their son?
The evidence we had against Amy was several DNA profiles. We had latent fingerprints. We had her on video purchasing the items that were used in her attempts to conceal or clean up the crime scene.
When her trial begins in April, Amy makes a surprising announcement.
Amy and her lawyer decided she would plead guilty. So the trial was to determine punishment.
I think she knew that the evidence was stacked up against her.
Rather than contesting the details of the murder, the defense makes an appeal to the jury for leniency.
What her attorney tried to do was show that Amy had a very difficult upbringing. When Amy was on the stand, she says that at about age 11, she began to be sexually abused. She was abused by her own father.
I think Amy was trying to put that out there to justify why she killed Wade. She said that he was molesting their children, and she discovered that, and so she killed him to protect her children. We had local advocacy centers in Denver forensically check the children, and we found no evidence to support that theory.
The prosecution argues that Amy's past trauma was not repeated in her life with Wade.
The fact that Amy is now accusing Wade of abuse, of physical, sexual abuse, it feels very convenient.
It seemed that she had a pattern of doing this. It seemed that this was just her way of getting what she wanted. We could see that she communicated with other men quite frequently in a sexual manner, so that could have been one of the motives that she had.
I also believe that she was already talking to other men and was trying to get out of the situation.
She didn't just shoot him after she found out that she couldn't lift a dead body. That's when she went and got the stuff, the respirators, the gloves, and was going to put him in that trash can. She wanted to wipe him off the face of the earth.
It's the kind of case that causes you to lose sleep at night. In fact, one of the jurors at the trial had to be excused because he was so traumatized by the details of the case.
On April 21st, 2013, the jury renders their verdict.
She was asking for mercy, but the jury did not believe anything she had to say. And they sentenced her to the most that they could, which was life in prison.
I think justice was served. She can't hurt anybody else. She can't hurt the children anymore. She can't hurt anybody. And all I have is a box with my son cremated and the memories in my head.
I would never thought something like this would happen to our family. She's a monster. The only thing I can ask her is why? Why can't you just walk away?
His eyes went wide. Is this? It's better than the real thing, Albert said, moving his knight. And I'll pay you $60 an hour to help me bake it. David Goldberg didn't sit back down. He looked at the money, then at Albert. The logic of the chessboard had just been replaced by the logic of the hustle. He was in, but David was just the labor. Albert needed the brokers. He reached out to Paul McCory, his best friend since they were 17. Paul was the charismatic one, the man with the connections. Then there was Troy Stroud, a man Albert had met during his previous stint in the college prison. Troy knew the gangs. He knew the streets of L.A. better than the Postal Service. Albert laid out the rules in a quiet corner of a dimly lit bar. I sell to you for $15, Albert said. You sell to your guys for $30. They sell to the street for $50. By the time that bill hits a cash register, it's 3 or tiers away from me. No one knows my name. No one knows where I live. And the gangs, Paul asked, they're loud. Ow. Gangs are loyal to the product, Albert replied. They're used to moving weight. This is lighter than Coke, and the profit margin is higher. Just tell them, one bill at a time. Go to a big box store, buy a pack of gum. Get $99 in real change. It's the perfect wash. The system was elegant. It was a machine. Albert moved out of his cramped apartment and into a comfortable townhouse in Lawndale. He stopped working at the body shop. He started buying things. First, it was the Mercedes, then another, then the crown jewel, an Aston Martin shimmering in the California sun like a silver bullet. He bought a house for a girlfriend in Woodland Hills. He bought 7 flat-screen TVs. He was living the American dream, but his version was printed at 1200 dpi. Chapter 4, the H to H38 Phantom. U.S. Secret Service, Los Angeles Field Office. Special Agent Christopher Toledo stared at a map of Los Angeles. It was covered in red pins. Each pin represented a hit, a counterfeit $100 bill that had been flagged by a bank. It's a bloodbath, Toledo muttered. Agent Matthew Mayo walked over, a file in hand. Mayo was an undercover specialist, a man who lived in the shadows. The forensics came back from D.C. It's the same plate, or rather, the same scan. Look at the serial numbers. On every bill, the plate numbers were the same, H2 and H38. This guy is lazy, Toledo said. He's not changing the plates. He's not lazy, Mayo countered. He's confident. He's flooded the market so fast that he doesn't think the plate numbers matter. Christopher, we went from 20 bills a week in 2005 to thousands a month in 2007. This isn't a print shop. This is a factory. The H to H38 notes were becoming a legend in the agency. They were appearing in New York, Chicago, Miami, and even London. The Secret Service was under pressure from the Treasury. The hot potato was burning everyone the mom and pop shops that couldn't recover the $100 loss. The big retailers who were passing the costs onto consumers. We're arresting the passers, Mayo said, frustration evident in his voice. Street kids, gang members, they all say the same thing. I found it, or I sold a car for cash. They're terrified of whoever is at the top. We need a break. Toledo said, nobody stays this clean forever. He's buying ink. He's buying paper. He's leaving a trail. We just haven't found the right footprints yet. Chapter 5, The Staples Trail. The break came not from a high-speed chase or a wiretap, but from a Staples Rewards card. The Secret Service had started monitoring office supply stores in the South Bay area. They were looking for bulk purchases of specific high-end inkjet cartridges. A clerk at a Staples in Lawndale remembered a man who came in regularly, always bought the same ink, and always used his rewards card to get the points. He likes his discounts, the clerk joked to the agents. The name on the card was Albert Talton. Toledo ran the name. The criminal record popped up like a neon sign. Bank fraud, forgery, released in 2004. Hello, Albert, Toledo whispered to his monitor. They set up a sneak and peek warrant for Troy Stroud's residence, a tactic that allowed them to enter and search while the suspect was away. They found nothing in the house, but they didn't need to. They followed Troy's Range Rover. They watched him drive to a townhouse in Lawndale. They watched him go inside with an empty bag and come out with a heavy one. Then they went for the trash. In the pre-dawn darkness, Agent Mayo, dressed in a sanitation worker's vest, grabbed the bags from the curb of the Lawndale townhouse. Back at the office, they laid out the contents on a sterile table. It was a gold mine of garbage. Empty ink cartridge wrappers, scraps of paper with half-printed Ben Franklins, a receipt for Paper Mart, and a prescription bottle with the name Albert Talton. We have him, Mayo said. He's washing his trash cans to hide the hairspray scent, but he's not shredding his receipts. Chapter 6, The Hotel Stakeout. The Secret Service rented a room at the hotel directly across from Albert's townhouse. For 16 hours a day, agents sat behind a long lens camera, documenting every visitor. They saw Paul McCory arrive in his bright orange Mercedes. They saw David Goldberg walk in with his red backpack. And they saw Albert. Albert looked like a successful businessman. He moved with a quiet confidence. He washed his cars with a meticulousness that bordered on obsessive. He was a man who loved his toys, and he had no idea that every time he polished his Aston Martin, a high-definition lens was capturing the reflection of his hubris. On April 30th, the surveillance team followed Albert and Paul to a warehouse called Paper Mart. They watched as the two men loaded 3 massive bales of newsprint into the car. Mayo went inside after they left. The manager handed him the receipt. 3 bales of newsprint, Mayo reported to the team. That's enough paper to print $1 million. He's filling a massive order. The tension in the hotel room was palpable. They could arrest him now for possession of the paper, but they wanted the red-handed moment. They wanted the printers running. They wanted the ink wet. Chapter 7, Crash and Burn. May 8th, 2008. The sun was just beginning to bake the asphalt of Lawndale when the tactical teams assembled. Albert was inside. Goldberg was there. McCory was there. The H to H38 factory was at full capacity. Agent Mayo stood in the hallway of the townhouse complex, his hand on the hilt of a battering ram. Behind him, a dozen agents held their breath, their tactical vests heavy with the weight of the moment. Police, search warrant. The door didn't just open, it disintegrated. Albert Talden was coming out of his bedroom, his mind likely on his next car or his next million. He found himself staring into the barrel of Mayo's Glock. Down! Get down! Albert didn't fight. He didn't run. He moved to the ground with a strange, eerie calmness. It was as if a part of him had been expecting this, as if the chess game had finally reached its inevitable checkmate. In the garage, Hundreds were hanging from lines like laundry, drying in the California heat. In the office, a bank of printers hummed, spitting out sheets of $20 bills. On the computer screen, a high-resolution image of $100 bills stared back at the agents. "You caught us mid-process," Goldberg sighed, his hands already in zip ties. "We were just about to finish the glue." Chapter 8. The Pride of the Forger. In the interrogation room, Albert Talton didn't ask for a lawyer immediately. He sat across from Agent Mayo and, for the first time, he smiled. "How did you get the hairspray trick?" Mayo asked, genuinely curious. Albert leaned back. He began to talk. He spoke about the white rain versus the Aquanet. He spoke about the sandwich method and the mirrored watermarks. He spoke with the pride of a man who had built a skyscraper with his bare hands. "I made $7 million with an inkjet printer I bought for $200, Albert said. "Tell me, Agent, does the Secret Service have anyone on the payroll who can do that?" "The difference," Albert, Mayo replied, "is that our money is backed by the government. Yours is backed by a can of Aquanet and a lie." Albert looked down at his hands, the hands of a craftsman. "It worked, didn't it? For 2 years, I was the biggest bank in L.A. Epilogue. The cost of free money. The sentencing was a cold affair. The judge looked at Albert Talton, a man of obvious intelligence and immense potential, and saw only a predator who had weakened the fabric of the nation's economy. 9 years in federal prison. The Aston Martin was towed. The Mercedes were repossessed. The 7 flat-screen TVs were sold at a government auction. The houses were gone. The American dream had been a digital file that Albert had finally deleted. Back in the specimen vault in D.C., Kelly Harris placed a final bill into the H2H38 drawer. He was good, she said. He was the best, her colleague agreed. But he forgot the first rule of the hustle. What's that? The house always wins, and the house prints the real ink. Far away, in a prison cell, Albert Talton sat on his bunk. He didn't have a printer. He didn't have an Aston Martin, but as he closed his eyes, he was already imagining a new way to take things apart. He was already thinking about the next dirt. Because for a man like Albert, the grease never truly washes off. Author's note: this narrative is based on the real-life investigation of Albert Talton. While some dialogue and internal monologues have been dramatized for literary effect, the technical details of his counterfeiting operation and the methods used by the Secret Service are based on the historical record of the case. The Architects of Deception, a novelization of shadow lives and stolen identities. Prologue: The Mask. The mirror does not lie, but the man staring into it does. In the soft glow of a California morning, 1979, the man who called himself Dr. Gerald Barnes adjusted his stethoscope. It was a prop, though a functional one. To the world, it was a symbol of healing, of authority, of a life dedicated to the preservation of pulse and breath. To Gerald Barnbaum, it was the final piece of a costume he had been perfecting since he left Chicago in a cloud of disgrace. He liked the weight of the lab coat. It had a specific stiffness, a clinical white that suggested purity. He practiced his doctor smile in the glass worm, reassuring, just the right amount of paternal concern. He wasn't just a pharmacist with a revoked license anymore. He was an actor who had found the role of a lifetime, and the stage was the Pacific Southwest Medical Group. 400 miles away, the real Dr. Gerald Barnes was waking up in Stockton, unaware that his name, his hard-earned credentials, and his very soul had been harvested by a ghost. Chapter 1: The Assistant's Shadow. Rick D'Alessandro liked his boss. That was the problem. In the busy hallways of the Orange County Clinic, Dr. Barnes was a breath of fresh air. He was a likable little guy, as Rick would often describe him, quick with a joke, easy to talk to, and possessed of a charismatic energy that made patients feel better before he even examined them. Morning, Rick, Barnes said, breezing past the reception desk with a stack of charts. Beautiful day to save some lives, isn't it? Rick smiled, checking the clipboard. We've got a full house. Doc, 25 scheduled. And the walk-ins are already lining up. The more the merrier, Barnes replied, his eyes twinkling behind scholarly spectacles. Rick watched him go, a small frown creeping onto his face. There was something about the way Barnes handled the more complex cases, a certain hesitation, a reliance on routine prescriptions. But in a high-volume clinic, efficiency was king. Barnes was efficient. He was the director. He was the man with the answers. Or so everyone thought. Chapter 2. The December Chill. December 26, 1979. The holiday spirit was a fading echo, replaced by the gray reality of a winter morning. John Mackenzie walked into the clinic, and even from across the room, Rick could see the man was vibrating with exhaustion. At 29, Mackenzie should have been in the prime of his life, but he looked like a candle guttering in the wind. His skin was sallow, his eyes sunken, and his gait was unsteady. I don't feel right, Rick, Mackenzie whispered, his voice dry as parchment. Thirsty, so thirsty. And dizzy. It's like the floor won't stay still. Rick ushered him into exam room 3. The doctor will see you in a moment. John, hang in there. When Barnes entered the room, he didn't see a man on the brink of a diabetic coma. He saw a script to be followed. He listened to the complaints, excessive urination, dry mouth, the loss of equilibrium, inner ear disturbance. Barnes pronounced with the practiced ease of a veteran clinician. A touch of vertigo happens after the holiday stress, diet, the usual. He scribbled on a pad, an anti-vertigo drug, something to stop the spinning. But the thirst, Doc, Mackenzie asked, clutching a paper cup of water like it was a holy relic. Your body is reacting to the imbalance, Barnes said, patting him on the shoulder. Take the pills. We'll run some blood work just to be safe, but you'll be fine by New Year's. Barnes sent him home. He didn't check for the sweet scent of ketones on the man's breath. He didn't notice the classic signs of a body eating itself. He had 39 other patients to see. He had a role to play. And John Mackenzie was just a bit player in the grand drama of Gerald Barnbaum's ego. Chapter 3, 1200. The lab results came back the next day. Dr. Barnes was off, enjoying the perks of his stolen prestige. Rick D'Alessandro was the one who opened the folder. He expected the usual slightly elevated cholesterol, maybe a minor infection. Instead, he saw a number that made his heart stop. Glucose, 1,200 milligrams DL. Normal was 80 to 100. 1,200 was a death sentence. It was a level so high the blood was practically syrup. Oh, God, Rick whispered. He didn't wait for a supervisor. He didn't wait for Barnes. He grabbed the phone and dialed Mackenzie's number. Ring, ring, ring. No answer. He called the emergency contact 10 ex-wife. She hadn't seen him. He called the other numbers on the chart. Silence. A cold dread settled in Rick's stomach. He looked at the chart again. Barnes had prescribed an anti-vertigo medication. He had sent a man in active, acute diabetic crisis home with a pill for dizziness. I need the police, Rick told the dispatcher, his voice trembling. Garden Grove PD. We have a patient. I think he's in danger. Chapter 4, The Kitchen Floor. The officers broke the door in. The apartment was quiet, the air heavy with the stillness of a life interrupted. They found John Mackenzie in the kitchen. He was lying on the floor, his body cold, his eyes staring at a ceiling he couldn't see. In his hand, clutched tightly like a failed talisman, was the prescription Dr. Barnes had given him. The anti-vertigo drug. The 29-year-old had collapsed into a coma and died alone. His body starving for insulin while he followed the expert advice of a man who didn't know the difference between a balance disorder and a metabolic catastrophe. When Rick heard the news, the grief was quickly overtaken by a burning, incandescent rage. A doctor might make a mistake, but this felt like a void where knowledge should have been. Rick sat in the quiet of the empty clinic that evening. He looked at the framed diploma on Barnes's wall. He looked at the medical board registration. Something felt hollow. Something felt wrong. He picked up the phone and called the medical board in Sacramento. I need to verify the identity of a Dr. Gerald Barnes, Rick said. Could you fax over his identification photo and file? The fax machine hummed to life. The paper slid out, inch by agonizing inch. Rick watched as the image formed. The man in the photo was older, different features, a different bone structure. The address listed was in Stockton, 400 miles away. Rick looked at the photo, then at the empty chair in the director's office. You're not him, Rick whispered to the shadows. Who the hell are you? Chapter 5. The Pharmacist of Chicago. The investigation into the man who would be king of the clinic revealed a history built on layers of deception. Before he was Dr. Barnes, he was Gerald Barnbaum. In Chicago, he had been a pharmacist, a man who understood the chemistry of medicine but lacked the ethics of it. He had been caught in a Medicaid scam, a greedy little grift that cost him his license. But Barnbaum was a performer. He had been a theater student in college. He knew how to project a character. If he couldn't be a pharmacist, he would be something better, something more powerful. He had called the medical board, posing as the real Dr. Barnes. He told them he had lost his duplicate license and was opening a clinic in Los Angeles. They, trusting the name and the professional tone, mailed him the credentials without a second thought. It was that easy. A phone call, a lie, and a white coat. On August 8th, 1980, the curtain finally fell. The police arrived not to discuss a patient, but to escort the leading man to a cell. The charge, practicing medicine without a license, and, more importantly, manslaughter. But as Gerald Barnbaum sat in the back of the cruiser, he wasn't crying. He was already thinking about his next role. Chapter 6, the second act. Prison was supposed to be the end of the story. For the family of John Mackenzie, 3 years felt like a slap in the face. For the real Dr. Barnes, the damage to his name was a wound that wouldn't heal. But Gerald Barnbaum was a man of habit. 18 months later, he was out on good behavior. He walked out of the prison gates, looked at the California sun, and realized he didn't know how to be anyone else. He didn't go back to Chicago. He didn't find a trade. He went to a different city, found a different clinic, and put on a different white coat. He became Dr. Gerald Barnes again. He even got married. Lisa Roberts thought she had found the perfect husband. He was a doctor, a provider, a romantic who showered her with flowers and took her to concerts. He earned a 6-figure salary. He was the medical director of a Los Angeles facility. I'm so proud of you, Gerald, she would say as she kissed him goodbye in the morning. It's all for you, darling, he would reply. He lived this life for years. He saw patients. He ordered tests. He performed physicals for FBI agents. He was so good at the role that even the government's premier law enforcement agency didn't check the credentials of the man sticking a tongue depressor into their throats. Until a Christmas party in 1996. Rick D'Alessandro was there. He had moved on with his life, but he never forgot the face of the man who killed John Mackenzie. He was standing near the punch bowl when he saw a familiar, likable little guy wearing a name tag. Hi. I'm Dr. Barnes. The world stopped. Rick felt the blood rush to his ears. It had been 16 years, but the mask was identical. Hi, Rick, the man said, his voice as smooth as silk. How are you doing? Rick stared at him, his fists clenching. Well, Gerald, I'm not doing too well, because you're doing the same thing you did back in the 70s. The doctor didn't flinch. He gave a small, sad smile. Well, you know, Rick, this is all just a big mistake. He walked away, disappeared into the crowd, and then disappeared from the city. But the FBI was now on the trail. Chapter 7, The Highway Ghost. While Barnbaum was a predator of the clinic, A different kind of architect was emerging in the heart of the Midwest. David Brankle didn't wear a white coat. He wore expensive suits. He drove a black BMW. He was a businessman, a developer, a man with a vision. In Bloomington, Indiana, Brankle was the man to know. He rented an office from Phil and Bonnie Sperry, claiming to run an architectural and construction firm called ACR. Architecture, construction. And what's the R for, David? Phil Sperry asked one afternoon over coffee. Brankle smiled, a smooth, practiced expression that reached his eyes but didn't warm them. Results, Phil, always results. But the R stood for robbery. Brankle was a man of dualities. Sunday through Wednesday, he was a family man in Vincennes, living in a rented house with a wife and a young son. Thursday through Saturday, he was a ghost on the interstate. He would drive his black BMW, a car he couldn't afford to grocery store banks, tucked inside Winn-Dixies and Meejers. He used a simple disguise, a fishing hat, a mustache, a pair of tan coveralls. He would walk up to the teller and hand over a note. I have a gun. Be quiet. Go home alive. He was efficient. He was calm. He was the interstate bank mart bandit IBM. And he was driving a path of financial destruction across 6 states. He had an accomplice, a woman named Donna Hewins. She was the Bonnie to his Clyde, a waitress he met at a club who fell for the thrill and the dapper suits. She sat in the idling BMW while David walked into the stores, a scanner in his hand, listening to the police frequencies. He was playing a game with the world. He was the successful entrepreneur by day and the most prolific bank robber in the region by night. He believed he was smarter than the detectives, smarter than the FBI, and certainly smarter than the people he scammed. Chapter 8, Operation Intercept. Detective Larry Duncan of the Louisville Metro Police was a man of maps. He sat in his office, staring at a cluster of pins that traced the path of the IBM bandit. Indianapolis, Louisville, Cincinnati, The pins followed the interstates like a trail of breadcrumbs. He's using the highways as his veins. Duncan muttered to his colleagues, Joe Schley and Agent Freihofer. He jumps on the I-65 or the I-71. And he's gone before the first cruiser arrives. Duncan had a theory. The bandit wasn't just a criminal, he was a commuter. He was likely based in Indiana, traveling out to hit targets and returning to a safe zone. In 2003, Duncan launched Operation Intercept. He placed undercover officers inside 5 target banks. He coordinated with 1,200 officers across the city. The trap was set. On September 6th, the IBM bandit struck hit number 35. The radio crackled. Operation Intercept. Operation Intercept. The call was too loud, too frantic. David Brankel, sitting in his BMW with the scanner hissing in his ear, heard the panic in the officer's voice. He didn't head for the interstate. He took the back roads. He slipped through the residential streets, weaving like a snake through the tall grass of the suburbs. Duncan watched the black sedan vanish on the horizon of his map. He's gone, Duncan said, leaning back in his chair. He's listening. He's always listening. Chapter 9, The Final Curb. Luck is a finite resource. For David Brankel, it ran out on a stretch of Highway 45 in December 2003. He was driving too fast. He was always driving too fast. He cut off a vehicle, nearly sending it into oncoming traffic. Unfortunately for Brankel, the man behind the wheel was Bloomington Detective Kevin Hill. The chase that followed was a symphony of screaming tires and 100-mile-per-hour desperation. Brankel disregarded stop signs. He ran people off the road. He was a man who had built a life on the belief that he could never be caught. And now the reality was catching up in his rearview mirror. He escaped the immediate pursuit, but he left behind a clue. He had dropped his license. Days later, in Vincennes, the Indiana State Police surrounded a house at 1919 Hickory. Brankel tried to run one last time. He abandoned his young son in the car final, chilling testament to his narcissism, and fled on foot through an apartment complex. He tripped on a curb. The interstate bank mart bandit, the man who had hit 43 banks and stolen $136,000, fell face first into the dirt. As Sergeant Greg Winkler clicked the handcuffs into place, a small knife fell out of Brankel's pocket. It just fell out, Brankel stammered, the smooth businessman gone, replaced by a shivering, pathetic figure. I wasn't going to hurt you. Chapter 10, The Interrogation Room. The two worlds of deception met in the cold fluorescent light of an interrogation room. In one city, Gerald Barnbaum was being sentenced to 12.5 years, weeping about his prostate cancer and his grandchildren, even as the judge warned that he would do it all again if given a chance. In Vincennes, David Brankel sat across from Larry Duncan. I'm the guy you're looking for, Brankel said, leaning forward as if he were about to offer a business deal. I'm the IBM bandit. Call Louisville. Call Cincinnati. They'll want to talk to me. For 6 hours, Brankel talked. He told them about the first robbery. He told them about Donna. He told them about his mother, who told him he couldn't even mow the lawn right. He was a man who wanted